Is he avoidant or just not into you? How do you know if an avoidant actually likes you? When you have an anxious attachment style, it can be so confusing to know if your avoidant partner is avoidant attached or doesn't care about you. So avoidant can seem so distant, but there's a huge difference between just being distant and someone who needs space versus someone who's just not into you. And I used to ask myself the same question after my honeymoon phase with my avoidant partner 4 or 5 years back then. When we were arguing a lot, I worried about what if my partner wasn't just avoidant, but was actually avoiding me, wasn't committed, wasn't seeing us long term, and was just like settling. After this episode, you will know exactly if your partner is actually just avoidant attached or not into you, or both. You will have clear signs so you can move on or work on your anxious attachment style to become more secure so you can detach easier. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. So if your partner is avoidant attached, it can look like they want to avoid you or commitment or the relationship in total. For example, if they might be quiet, need a lot of time alone, or are more withdrawn, which doesn't mean necessarily they don't want to spend time with you though. It might just mean they need a lot of more time for themselves. Another example might be how avoidant attachment shows up in different ways. This might be their hesitation around future plans. So maybe they seem very comfortable when you want to talk about future plans, even holidays, like 6 months beforehand, or when you want to talk about moving in together or buying a house or kids. This isn't necessarily a sign that they don't see a future with you though. It is because thinking too far ahead in future can trigger their fears of being trapped and losing independence. This doesn't have to mean anything about you or their commitment for you or their love for you. By the way, hi, I'm Yula. I'm the Anxious to Secure coach, and welcome to the Anxious to Secure podcast. So are you ready to hear the questions you can ask yourself to know, hey, is my partner just avoidant or are they not into me? So one, you can ask yourself about the love language. Do they show care at all? How they express love or how they show love. If they're avoidant, they express love, but in their own way. If they don't necessarily speak your love language, that's okay, but at least they do speak any love language. So maybe they don't say I love you often because that kind of triggers their fear inside them, but at least they show love in their own ways, maybe through actions, for example, fixing things in the house or bringing you coffee or just remembering little small things. Maybe acts of service is then their love language, or remembering something special about you on your birthday. But a sign if they're not into you might be they don't speak any love language, not to you at least. So no words of affirmation, no small acts, no effort, just breadcrumbs, no consistency. If someone truly loves you, they will express it in some kind of way or shape or form. But often if we are anxiously attached, we're focusing too much on how we want to be loved versus how they love us. Like my partner, for example, he was never great with words of affirmation, compliments, but he was very thoughtful in giving me gifts or little acts throughout the day. And he loves to cook for me, for example. It's his love language. He likes to take care of the household for me. Like we both don't have time to clean and I don't like to clean, but he makes it easier for me to take care of the household, for example. He buys me a Roomba even though we don't have that much money, so I literally don't have to use my time to like mop or clean or hoover. So it's making it so much simpler. Or he bought these noise cancelling headphones for me a while back when I was struggling a lot with migraines and noises outside, especially when we used to live in London. So ask yourself, is your partner speaking their love language, not just yours? Second sign. Another sign to really distinguish between if your partner is just avoidant attached or just not interested in you is to pull back and stop chasing and ask yourself, how do they show up when you stop the chase? So avoidant really wants space, right? They feel really safe when they have space to breathe, when they don't feel trapped. So when you stop over pursuing your partner, their actual engagement should change a little bit and they should start to feel more safe, come more naturally to you. They might not change by 180%, but they should change slowly, gradually, and they might not be still super expressive if that's not their natural love language, but at least they might maybe even start planning something or maybe more engaged and open when you then suggest something occasionally. And if your partner's not into you, they just not into you and they disappear. Doesn't matter how much you pull back, they won't step up ever. You can't change someone if they're just not into you, no matter how much you pull back, no matter how relaxed you are. So the other day, I coached an anxious attached guy on this who is married to his avoidant attached wife, and he didn't want to believe the fact that if he would stop pursuing her as much, that she would step up more. So after coaching him, he started applying some of these action steps. And after just 1 week alone, he messaged me, was like over the moon. He thought this is a secret pill for everything. She was much more engaging and he couldn't believe what was happening. First, he thought because she was as engaged, that means she doesn't care about him anymore and marriage was basically about to end. But just by him pulling back just slightly, it gave her so much more space to breathe, because for probably a month or even years, he kept asking for things, he kept expressing his needs. In the online space, everyone's talking about you have to express your needs, you have to say what you want, but this can create so much pressure. It creates so much pressure for your partner if you keep expressing your needs over and over again. It makes them feel like they're not enough, and it doesn't help in this anxious avoidant dynamic. Sometimes we just have to pull back and less is more. And so she did came closer and step up and be more affectionate, and that is so possible if the partner is actually into you still. It won't work if your partner just literally already dropped out, was never into you, or just changed their mind and is just like sticking around because they gave up on the relationship or marriage and just hanging around because it's the easier way. So try to do less. Try to focus on you instead of your partner. The third way to identify if your partner is just avoidant attached or just not into you is if you pay attention to how they respond when you express your needs. So if they're avoidant attached, they struggle with emotional intimacy. By adjusting when you express things positively instead of negatively, everything can change over time. So if you stop blaming or criticizing your partner and just start with appreciation and calm communication, they can make more effort as well. And I always say communication is the last tool I teach to my anxious attachment clients, because anxiety is the biggest challenge that is in the way of the communication and everything in the relationship. But it will be still very powerful, and it will be able to tell you if your partner is actually into you or not, if you change the way you communicate with your partner. But if they're not into you, no matter how you express your needs, they just don't care. They won't compromise. They're just not interested in meeting your needs whatsoever. The needle just won't move in the slightest bit. It doesn't matter how you frame things. If you give them compliments, say it in a soft voice, reassure yourself first, fill your cup yourself first. No matter how you say things, they are not interested in meeting your needs. They're not interested in making you happy or the relationship. Just a little side story. When I switched from being very critical in my relationship, everything changed in my relationship and for my partner as well. I used to criticize my partner for leaving cups in the sink so many times, and I repeated myself over and over again. And firstly, I started asking myself, do I really, really care about this? How much does this really matter? Like, if the world would end tomorrow, how much did it matter that I said this over and over again? And how much is it just about me controlling the situation and just making a point because I've said it so many times, versus that it's an important need for me right now. And I managed to just let it go and said, you know what, I'm just not going to say anything negative for at least 7 days. And then I continued for another 7 days. And instead, I added something else, appreciation. I complimented him on things that he did do well, or I would love to see. Like when he did things right, I said, oh my God, I love that you did this today. I love that you emptied the bit today because, I had no energy and it makes me feel so supported. And this changes everything. When you say something good, it makes a person feel great about himself. But if you criticize them, it makes them feel like crap. So how do you want your partner to feel? And also, I realized it's not just about how your partner feels, it's how you feel in the moment. When you say nice things about other people, you say negative things about other people or to other people, you feel like crap too. So how do you want to feel in your relationship? And now you might think, yeah, but it doesn't go a long way if I just say positive things. It's much more effective when I say negative things. And it might be true for a little bit. Your brain usually is more wired to avoid pain. You want to build your relationship built on pain. I don't. When I introduced this different vibe in our relationship, when I started to compliment him for the way how he showed up in our relationship, he changed like by 180% within just a few weeks, and I did too. He did the washing up without me having to ask for it. He did so many other things that I never even thought was his part of the household chores, because he felt more inspired by it. He felt good about it. And now he's much more of a clean freak than I am. Now I feel like I'm the messy one and the one who just leaves things in the sink sometimes. And he's the one who really is, he cares about that the kitchen is clean and all of these things. And I'm more the one who's a bit lazy and procrastinates on things. By the way, let me take a quick moment to just tell you about something that might help you if you're struggling with trying to control the situation. This is actually a deep need for certainty. Certainty is based on one of these top unmet needs that we have as anxious attacher in relationships. Our need for certainty can come out through trying to micromanage our partner or trying to overthink. When you overthink everything in your relationship, it can be draining in your relationship, it can take over, it can make you be less in the moment. I've created this mini course. It's called Stop Overthinking in Relationship with Your Avoidant Partner in 4 steps. There are so many lessons you can learn in there. You know by now that you cannot control your partner. Period. The more you try to control your partner, the more you try to analyze and predict what might happen in future, the more anxious you become, and the more your partner's trying to escape the situation as well, because they can feel that you're not really with them, that you're trying to control them as well. So in this 4-step course, it's designed to help you stop the mental spiral. It's not about managing your partner's behavior, not at all. It's about managing your response, how you see a relationship and your partner and yourself. You will recognize what overthinking actually is, why we overthink as someone who has an anxious attachment style, to interrupt this cycle through fast SOS tools, but also long-term, deep, transformative tools to build self-trust, to take control of your emotions and your mind again, so you'll be able to be present with your relationship. Because let's be real, you don't have a relationship if you're just in your head and if you're not present with your partner right now. It's so empowering and relaxing when you can let go of this. Still in beta round, meaning you can ask me all the questions you have via email, and I can dedicate my time to you to answering all of these questions, which will help me, because when I re-record everything by end of the year, I can add more modules, and right now it's reduced, so grab the link in the show notes or in the YouTube descriptions. So sign number 4, that they're not into you or that they're avoidant attached. You can ask yourself, do they make progress over time? Is the needle moving? Avoidant attached, they might progress over time, slowly, but at least there is a progression there. If you compare 3 months over 5 years, they are a different person. You have created a complete different relationship. They might struggle, but they're still moving forward, even if it's not very visible. For example, a lot of times we expect our partner to go to therapy or do this big inner work, but inner work can look completely different for everyone else. They're not gonna be doing the big inner work how maybe someone else might do this, but at least over time there is an improvement there. Versus if they're not into you, there's no growth. They're not interested in any of the work, no matter how big or small. Some behaviors, some patterns, some excuses are going to be there forever. They're going to cross your boundaries. Maybe they have cheated on you, they will cheat on you again. They're going to keep raising their voice over and over again, and you're going to excuse their behaviors all the time. If someone truly likes you, they will put in effort over time. My partner, for example, who's avoidant attached, was a completely different person like 5 years ago. We had so many issues back then. And I thought even it might have been more like a toxic relationship. I don't really want to put labels on, but he was raising his voices when we had an argument. There was always this like, oh, we're going to break up now, or we're not going to break up. This was this back and forth. And now we are at this place where it's completely different. He doesn't raise his voice anymore, and I can set boundaries. And he's also the one sometimes who's like pointing out things towards me that I need to improve. And that is amazing because I'm not perfect either. And having someone there to point my flaws out that I need to work on is actually super helpful. Helpful in the moment, but over time, you can both grow together. So ask yourself, is the needle moving forward in general, even though it might be at a different speed how you want it to be? Avoidance needs time, but the key is their progress overall. Sign 5 is you can ask yourself, what happens when you become securely attached? And this is not something you can necessarily ask yourself if you haven't started this journey or if you haven't gone there yet, but maybe you can pick up on a few cues along the journey. You can also ask yourself like, what is happening if I become the best version of myself? A sign if your partner is avoidant is when you stop reacting from anxiety, hold boundaries, or show up with self-respect and communicate from this grounded place. How do they then respond? Do they respond positively with respect as well? Basically, if you show up as your best version, does this give them more of an opportunity to show up as their best version, or do they still give you only breadcrumbs? How do they show up? If they're not into you, nothing changes. Even if you are coming across as your best version, they still show up as their worst version. I had a client once who became more secure, and her boyfriend started meeting her halfway, but slowly, even if it was in micro moments. When you become your best version, when you don't react with criticism and react impulsively to things, then you can see how does your partner react, because it takes one to make it change. And sign number 6 is, how do they show effort? If they're avoidant attached, they try it in their own messy way sometimes. Avoidants don't go big on romantic gestures all the time, maybe the honeymoon phase, but not anymore afterwards. But they're often showed more through little smaller ways, like through their actions, maybe through consistent actions over time. If they're not into you though, they don't show any effort, very much like breadcrumbs. Maybe they're just love bombing you at the beginning and then there's completely zero, nothing. Maybe they're even flirting with other people online or liking other people's pictures, and they're completely disrespecting you and your needs. For example, avoidant attachers are not naturally always romantic, but they will show up in their own special, unique way. Maybe they have a special sense of humor, or they will create weird stories. Like my partner and I, we always share stories about the squirrels we used to have in London. We always had our door open, and we had these London squirrels who always came in our flat, in our room literally, and we fed them, and we still share these weird stories about them. We gave them each names, and they have these special characters. So my partner and I always talk about them. Yeah, this is our love language, basically making up stories about them. So what is your partner's way of showing you that they care about you? And the last sign to know if your partner is just avoidant or if they're not into you is to know how do they handle future conversations. So if they're avoidant attached, they avoid deep conversations at first, but over time, slowly they open up more and more when they feel safer and when it's the right moment and when you don't pressure them for it, when you don't drop 20 times the hints that you want to get married, or one day when you're married, or when you have kids, when you buy a house and all of this, when you release the pressure. But if they're not into you, they dodge all of the questions completely. They never want to talk about this, or they might even clearly say they don't see a future when they get married, but you still ignore all of these red flags and you still pursue the relationship anyway in hopes of changing their mind, of hopes of changing the person. For example, my client's boyfriend used to avoid future talks at all times, but after a while he admitted he wanted a marriage one day, but right now he just feels it's not the right time. He feels a lot of pressure from work. He wanted to be at a financial level where he can provide, and it just made him feel very pressured as well. He just wanted to move along a little bit slower than she wanted, understanding that it wasn't personal and it has nothing to do with his feelings for her changed everything for her after we coached a little bit on this topic. Knowing for an avoidant attachment, marriage can be a little bit like a prison, the ultimate trap to lose independence, versus for an anxious attachment, it can be like this dream. The marriage can be the ultimate dream of security, of belonging, of love and connection. But for an avoidant attachment, can be the opposite. So understanding this, not making it personal, but knowing about how your core wounds play a role here can be very important. So if someone dodges, dismisses or laughs off those kind of talks all the time, it's a clear sign that they're really not interested in you or the relationship. But if they do see a future with you, but they are just more slower and moving at a different pace, it might mean more they are probably just avoidant and need more time. If they are not interested into you, it's 100% possible they also have an avoidant attachment style, right? The key is to figure out not if they have an avoidant attachment style, but more if they're actually interested in you. Because it's possible if they're not interested in you and also have an avoidant attachment style, but it doesn't matter if they're not into you, right? So many times people who have an avoidant attachment style get very villainized online, and I hate to say that, but that often comes from a lack of knowing who people are with an avoidant attachment style, about their core wounds, really missing the lack of understanding there. People saying they shouldn't be in relationships. Who are we to say these kind of people don't deserve love, but these people deserve love? It's absolutely wrong. It's just important to say, you know what? People who have an avoidant attachment style can also be in a relationship, and it can work as long as they are into you, as long as these signs are there, like they are interested, the needle is moving, even if at a different pace. So the final takeaway, if they're avoidant, they will still show up in just slow, consistent, sometimes a little bit more frustrating ways. But if they're not into you, they just won't make an effort. You will only see breadcrumbs. So if you're wondering if they're avoidant or just not into me, watch their actions over time. That will tell you everything. And don't forget to check out the free resources linked in the free attachment library with worksheets, cheat sheets, journaling prompts, and so much more. And remember, change in your relationship starts with you, thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode. Bye bye, Yula.